So when we started excavating here, we found that there were a series of enclosures. And all of that was enclosing several buildings, probably hall-type buildings, which is quite rare to find in Pictish architecture.
This windswept hill in northern Scotland hides a secret more ancient than the legends of Arthur. For centuries, it was just another rise on the land, forgotten, silent, invisible to history's eye. But now, it whispers a story of lost kingdoms, of painted warriors, and a power that once ruled the Highlands. At Tap O Noth, archaeologists have uncovered a city-sized fortress that may rewrite everything we thought we knew about early medieval Britain, a thriving metropolis where none should have stood. A Pictish enigma built in the twilight after Rome's fall. This is the mystery of a civilization that refused to vanish. A kingdom lost in the mist. Long before castles dotted the Scottish Highlands, there were stories written in earth and fire. The Roman Empire had collapsed, leaving behind broken roads and forgotten temples. Most of Britain was slipping into what many called the Dark Ages. But beyond the edges of Roman maps, beyond the stone walls of Hadrian and Antonine, a different kind of world was taking shape. Up in the hills where clouds linger low, the Picts were building something of their own. We don't know much about them, not their language, not their gods, not even what they called themselves. The name Pict comes from outsiders, Roman writers who labeled them the Painted Ones, likely because of tattoos or war paint. That single word is almost all the world remembered, a nickname passed through time like a whisper. For centuries, they were seen as scattered, tribal, even primitive, left out of the larger tales of kingdoms and emperors. That was the story passed down. But stories can lie, or forget. Because on a lonely hill in Aberdeenshire, Scotland, archaeologists uncovered something that changed everything. Tap O Noth, once thought to be an ancient Bronze Age hill fort, turned out to be something far grander. Not a ruin, not a camp. A city built by a people we barely understand. Built when no one believed they could. This wasn't a flicker of civilization. It was a flame, one that burned brighter than anyone had imagined, until the mist rolled in and covered it for centuries. The day the hill spoke. It began like many digs do, with quiet footsteps, notebooks, and cautious hopes. A team from Aberdeen University climbed the windswept slopes of Tap O Noth, expecting maybe a few Iron Age stones, some ancient ash. The hill had been surveyed before. Nothing remarkable had been found. But this time, the hill spoke. Not with words, but with walls. Massive ramparts emerged from the earth, far thicker and more complex than anyone had guessed. As they dug further, a pattern began to form, rows upon rows of structures, house foundations layered in the soil. Not 10, not 50, hundreds. Over 800 buildings in total, carefully arranged, built with purpose. This wasn't a lookout post. It wasn't a shelter from the cold. It was a settlement. No one expected a city to rise out of this lonely Scottish hillside, especially not from the 5th or 6th century, a time still called dark by many historians. But radiocarbon dating didn't lie. This stronghold belonged to the Picts, and it wasn't small. It may have housed 4,000 people, an urban population nearly unheard of in Scotland until the 12th century. The scale of it shook assumptions. How had we missed this? How could a site so large, so structured, so alive have remained a secret? Maybe we weren't ready to see it before. Maybe we weren't listening. But now, Tap O Noth is impossible to ignore, and its silence has become a roar. The shadow of Rome. To understand the weight of Tap O Noth's discovery, we have to go back to when Britain lost its master. Rome, once the unshakable power stretching from the Atlantic to the Euphrates, was crumbling. By the early 5th century, its legions had withdrawn from Britain. The empire's roads cracked, cities emptied. A great silence followed. Most of southern Britain splintered, petty kingdoms rose, warlords seized crumbling forts, and chaos seemed to rule. But in the north, where the Romans never truly conquered, something else happened. The Picts, long dismissed as wild tribes beyond civilization, didn't disappear when Rome pulled back. They rose. For years, they had watched from the hills, seen Roman tactics, absorbed Roman weapons, perhaps even fought in their wars. But they kept their own ways. When the empire retreated, the Picts didn't follow. They built something of their own. Tap O Noth may have been born from this shift. It's no Roman city. No marble temples or aqueducts here. But it carries a different kind of order. A fortress is designed not just for defense, but for the community. Its ramparts speak of strategy, its houses of daily life.
Pictish forts, like here at Dunnottar, were probably also destroyed during this period.
Its sheer size of ambition. Where the south saw decline, the north answered with construction. In the ruins of empire, a new power stepped forward. And in the shadow left behind by Rome, the Picts carved a space for themselves, bold, silent, and forgotten until now. Who were the Picts really? We see them in fragments, strange symbols etched into stones, faces imagined in warrior paint, a people without a voice in their own words. That's the challenge of the Picts. Their history isn't written, it's carved, scattered, and buried. But the pieces are starting to fit together. They weren't just raiders from the mist or nameless hill dwellers. The evidence now shows they were organized, artistic, and engaged with the world beyond their borders. Their carvings are unlike anything in Europe. Creatures that defy easy explanation, symbols repeated across vast distances. Some may represent clans, others, ideas lost to time. But they meant something. These weren't just decorations, they were declarations.
Anglian cavalry are depicted retreating from the scene, with the Pictish army in hot pursuit.
At Tap O Noth, the carvings are only part of the story. The structures speak louder. You can almost see how they lived. Small homes grouped with care, places for gathering, cooking, working metal, or weaving cloth. Objects from other lands have been found here, hinting at trade, possibly even as far as the Mediterranean. Yet still, no writing, no laws, no scrolls, no king lists. We don't know the names of those who ruled this place, but we know they built it. We know they defended it, and we know that for a time they thrived. Not as shadows, but as people. Now first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you. A fortress that shouldn't exist. When most people imagine ancient Scotland, they think of scattered huts or lonely towers standing against the wind. But Tap O Noth doesn't fit that picture. It breaks it, completely. The site's sheer size is almost hard to grasp. 17 acres, enclosed, protected, structured. More than 800 individual dwellings are packed into the hill's slopes. That's not just a village. That's urban planning, centuries before Scotland was supposed to have cities. For comparison, the mighty Tintagel in Cornwall, often linked with the legend of King Arthur, covers just 5 acres. Cadbury Castle, another contender for Camelot, stretches across 7. Even Burghead, once considered the largest Pictish stronghold, is dwarfed by Tap O Noth. So why was this place overlooked for so long? The answer may lie in assumptions. For decades, historians believed that post-Roman Britain was fragmented and backward, that only in the south did large centers of power survive. But here, on a windswept hill in Aberdeenshire, that belief begins to crumble. Tap O Noth rewrites the map. It forces us to ask, what else have we missed? If a metropolis could rise here, what might still lie buried across the Highlands? The Picts were never just a footnote. They were architects of an age we're only now beginning to understand. Life on the hill. Imagine waking up on Tap O Noth 1,500 years ago. The sun rises over a patchwork of wooden homes, smoke curling from chimneys. Children are running between the huts, livestock stirring, the clang of tools, the rhythm of survival. This wasn't just a military outpost, it was a community. The homes were clustered in organized patterns, small round or rectangular dwellings, likely made of timber and thatch. Some were larger, possibly belonging to local leaders or craftspeople. Others may have doubled as workshops. There were storage pits and hearths, even drainage systems, showing thought and planning. People here farmed. They raised cattle, sheep, and pigs. They grew barley and wheat. They made pottery and tools. They wore jewelry, some crafted from local materials, others imported, hinting at trade routes we still don't fully understand. And they watched the horizon. Defensive walls suggest they feared attack, perhaps from rival tribes. perhaps from the encroaching Anglo-Saxons moving northward, maybe even from the Norse. Yet despite these threats, life thrived. There was faith, too, though not the Christianity we associate with later centuries. Here, in the 5th and 6th centuries, older beliefs likely held sway. Spirits of the land, ancestors, symbols carved in stone. Each home tells a story, and together they whisper of a people proud, organized, and anything but primitive. The winds of change. By the late 6th and early 7th centuries, the world around Tap O Noth was changing. New forces were creeping in from the south and across the sea. The Anglo-Saxons were expanding. Christian monks were traveling north with crosses and scripture. The ancient gods were beginning to fall silent. What did that mean for the people on the hill? We don't know if Tap O Noth had a church, but we do know that by this time, Christianity had begun its slow spread into Pictish lands. Missionaries like St. Columba arrived with words of peace and a message of transformation. Some converted, others resisted. The old symbols remained, carved into stones even after the cross had taken root. Change also came with conflict. The Anglo-Saxons weren't just settlers, they were conquerors. As they moved northward, they brought war, alliances, and pressure. The once isolated citadels of the Picts found themselves in the path of shifting empires. For Tap O Noth, the story becomes quiet again. At some point, people left. The homes were emptied. The fires went cold. Was it war, disease, migration? We may never know. But what's clear is this. Tap O Noth stood tall during one of Britain's greatest transformations. And when it faded, a new kind of kingdom was rising, one shaped by monks, kings, and foreign swords. A network of hidden kings. Tap O Noth may have been vast, but it wasn't alone. Across the rugged terrain of what is now Scotland, other strongholds, Burghead, Dundurn, and Craig Fadrig, hint at a network of power stretching from coast to coast. Each was likely ruled by its own elite, but were they rivals or part of a larger Pictish confederation? That's the puzzle historians are now trying to solve. These hill forts weren't built randomly. They occupied strategic locations overlooking valleys, rivers, and ancient roads. They suggest coordination, planning, perhaps even hierarchy. And if Tap O Noth was the largest, could it have been the center? A capital of sorts? We may never know the names of the kings who ruled here, but there's reason to believe Tap O Noth wasn't just a fortress, it was a seat of governance, a place where decisions were made, alliances forged, and power consolidated. Unlike the Roman world, Pictish rule didn't leave behind coins or statues, but it left impressions in stones, in fire-hardened walls, in layers of earth. It tells us that kingship wasn't foreign to them. It was embedded in their hills. And if Tap O Noth was once a throne among clouds, then its rediscovery is like finding a ghost wearing a crown, a glimpse into a kingdom built of memory and stone. The vanishing of a people. By the 10th century, something strange had happened. The Picts, once a dominant force in northern Britain, had vanished, not in battle, not in some dramatic collapse. They faded slowly into another culture. Their language disappeared. Their name was no longer used. And soon, they were only a memory in monastic chronicles. So what happened? The answer may lie in absorption, not extinction. Over the generations, the Picts merged with Gaelic-speaking Scots from the west. Through marriage, war, and shared belief, a new identity formed: Alba, the early foundation of what would become Scotland. In this fusion, the Picts didn't vanish. They transformed. Yet the silence around them remains eerie. Their symbols ceased to be carved. Their stories were never written down. We're left with ruins, stones, and guesses. Some say it was Christianity that finished the transition. Others blame Viking raids, which hit the northern coasts with devastating force. Monasteries burned, leaders fell, old systems broke. Whatever the cause, by the time medieval scribes were recording history, the Picts were already in the past. A people remembered more by mystery than memory. But sites like Tap O Noth crack open the silence. They show that the Picts weren't fading shadows. They were builders of fortresses, makers of culture, and architects of their own legacy. They didn't vanish. We just forgot how to hear them. Echoes in the earth. Today, Tap O Noth stands quiet again. Sheep graze where once stood thousands. Wind whistles through empty stones. And yet, something has changed. This hill now carries a new weight, one that stretches across time. Archaeologists are still working. Each season uncovers more. Pottery shards, post holes, the remains of hearths. Advanced technologies like ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR scans have only just begun to map what lies beneath the surface. With every layer peeled back, the picture grows clearer. But this is more than just one site. It's a spark, a signal that we may have overlooked a vast chapter of history. If such a massive settlement existed here, how many others have been lost beneath peat and forest? What other truths have we buried under old assumptions? Tap O Noth challenges us to look again. I would like to question the neat timelines we've written, to ask whether the so-called Dark Ages were really dark at all. It also invites imagination. Who were the children who played on these slopes? Who were the elders who ruled by firelight? What songs were sung here? What stories were passed down, now lost in the wind? In every rock, every bone, there's a chance to rediscover a world thought forgotten. The Picts may be gone, but their echoes remain in the earth, waiting to be heard. The Picts left no books, no grand cathedrals, no crowned legends in gold, but they left Tap O Noth, a fortress in the clouds, a whisper from a forgotten world. In a land long thought to be broken by Rome's retreat, they built something vast, alive, and defiant. Their story was buried, but not lost, and now, stone by stone, we're beginning to hear it. As archaeologists dig deeper and technology reveals what eyes cannot see, the silent hills are speaking again. History isn't always written. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it sleeps beneath your feet, just waiting to be remembered.